Hi there everybody, Loathing Wi-Fi here. A little bit of a different video, as you can see by the subject and frame and the title. So I bought myself an old Carcano, specifically the Carcano Cavalry Carbine. There are reasons to want that over the normal Carcano or other World War One and Two. But I was looking at World War One rifles, namely it's so short and handy. But really the reason I got it was because it was cheap on the market at the time. And that was the number one criteria for me. So I say recently, I actually got this two years ago now. But we'll get into that. Anyways, so first of all, what the heck is this video? I want to start by saying it is not a review. It is not a review of either the Carcano, this Carcano, or Carcanos from the place that I got this from, which is Royal Tiger Imports is where I got this from. There are a number of reasons for this. First of all, obviously, these are all very old rifles. They will be in all sorts of different shape. I'm sure some are so mechanically worn out, or maybe, as to be unreliable, or maybe the barrel's all shot out. So I don't want to get one with and maybe I happen to get a really nice barrel and I say this is a very accurate rifle, and then you go out there and you get one with a terribly shot out barrel, which there's good odds you'll get that, and it isn't accurate, and you're like, what the heck? Actually, this barrel does look really nice to me, but anyways, and the other thing is, even if this was a brand new rifle that was coming out, I simply don't have hardly any experience with bolt actions or really rifles that aren't AR-15s. So I cannot tell you how well this does in compared to other bolt actions in the ways that it might be stronger or weaker. There's hearsay, there's things that I've heard when I was researching this. For example, I've heard the action for the Carcano is not very smooth, but I haven't shot enough bolt actions to tell you what a smooth bolt action is. So all that, what it is more my experience buying it, cleaning it, doing a little fix, and shooting it. And keep in mind who I am. As I said, I haven't really shot any bolt actions. I'm a very basic, I have a number of different handguns on the channel, and I've shot a number of different handguns, but in terms of long guns, I've shot my buddy's shotgun some, and I've shot ARs, and I think I've shot a bolt action like twice, and maybe like a Ruger 1022 a couple times. But the point is, I don't have a ton of long gun experience. I did actually, though, major in history, and one of the concentrations in that was World War One. So that's, you can maybe see why I had some motivation to get a rifle from the war. So anyways, to go through my experience, first of all, the purchasing of the rifle. I bought it from Royal Tiger Imports in mid-late 2023, I believe, and it was for about $200. It was between like $180 and $220. My understanding is these are still, the Cavalry Carbine specifically, the Carcano is still very cheap when you can find them. I think they're a little bit, there was a bit of a glut of them back then. There aren't quite as many now. But they're still fairly available as surplus rifles go. And then when I got it, it came in pretty beat up, and I didn't want to shoot it for a long time because, I had mistakenly assumed that it would be really hard to take apart and clean and everything, which it wasn't. But B, I was also, rifle from 1918. This one was manufactured in 1918. I don't want to shoot it and explode myself. That just seemed a little worrying to me. But anyways, I bought it because I still wanted to have it, and I made sure to store it in a place that wasn't going to get damp or anything. And I think I did a little bit of cleaning, like just put some oil on the outside just so I could prevent rust, but I didn't really look inside at all. I kind of just wanted to have it. Also part of the purchase, well, not part of the purchase, I didn't purchase these when I got the rifle, but I got clips, Carcano clips from Royal Tiger Imports as well. They're steel clips specifically. And so I have cleaned and shot it since then, spoiler alert, but I have shot it very sparingly. So we're talking 20, 30 rounds, just because ammo is expensive, and, you know, this isn't like a serious rifle for me. Like, this isn't like my, you know, AR or handgun where I might have to rely on it to protect myself. So who cares if I'm any good with it? You know, I'm only ever getting out there to shoot it for fun. So the rifle itself, when I got it, it was very, very beat up. I don't know how much is showing, a little bit. You can actually see on the stock, there's this one spot that's like kind of matte. That's from, I believe, where it would have rubbed up on somebody's back as they had it slung over their back. There's all sorts of little dings in the stock, dings in the metal even. Although I will say when I got it, what was really cool was there wasn't any corrosion. I mean, maybe there was like a little, I guess, that came off very easily with a light oil and then a copper brush, but really hardly any, if at all. Also, the wood was like super dirty and it smelled terribly. So that was gross. That was gross. I didn't like that. There was a ton of cosmoline all over it. Or you said this is the Cavalry Carbine. So yeah, when I got it, super gross, super funky smelling. And it also had a little crack in the stock, right in the front of the stock. So that wasn't good. It also didn't come with a sling. This is a Warhorse Concept sling. It is my favorite sling for ARs. It is a historical anachronism because it is not the type of sling that would have put on it in World War I, but I wanted to have a sling on this gun. And so I put a Warhorse Concept sling that I liked and already had on it. So that's why there is a Desert Night camo on my World War I rifle, the camo from like the 90s. Anyways. So, yeah, anyways, left it around for about 2 years, didn't do anything with it. Finally, I actually read Infantry Attacks by Erwin Rommel, who you probably know more from World War II, but Infantry Attacks, or just Attacks as mine is titled, was about like his tactics and his experiences during World War I. So I read that, and that's when I got a little bit inspired to clean this thing and shoot it, especially since he fights the Italians there. So what was the cleaning experience like then? Because again, it was super, super dirty. It was way simpler than I would have thought. I don't know why I assumed that it would be really... I just thought, like, you know, old piece of machinery, probably pretty complicated, and like something that I have experience with ARs, right? So I've actually built an AR. I guess technically assembled because I didn't like complete through a low receiver, but like, you know, I installed the barrel and handguard and stuff and put everything together, and I had assumed that none of that knowledge would translate to this, that it would just be foreign to me. But I was very wrong. It's actually super, super simple to disassemble, and that is my understanding. The Carcano is a very simple rifle generally. One thing I've heard is the reputation the Mosin Nagant gets, right, for being this little bit crude but very simple and reliable rifle is actually probably something that the Carcano should have instead, because the Mosin is surprisingly complicated for a rifle of its type, while the Carcano is actually very simple and reliable. But anyways, yeah, it was like crazy simple. Yeah, super easy. Cleaning it, it would have been easy. It would have been very easy. However, there was so much cosmoline on it. I don't know if it was cosmoline specifically or something like cosmoline, but there was a lot of it. It took a while to get off. It's not fully off. Some of it will be there forever. I think I did an okay job, but some of it's going to be there forever. You know, as I've said a couple times now, fortunately there was no rust on the inside, which was really, really good, because I had neglected it, you know. There was, unfortunately, a crack towards the front of the stock. It was a very small crack, and what it was that front barrel band was a little bit too tight and was essentially pulling the stock apart. So what I did, all I did was fill it in with wood glue. because it was, again, very hairline, very tiny. Filled in with wood glue. When I put the barrel band on, I left it a little bit looser than it had been, and I have shot it since then. I didn't shoot it before that repair. I have shot it entirely after that repair, and it hasn't, nothing's gone wrong. So, you know, if I see that crack start to open up again, yeah, I'll probably retire the gun, but not seeing that happening. Any subsequent cleanings, by the way, now, if for whatever reason tomorrow I was like, oh, I got to clean my Carcano, that would be pretty easy. It's just that first one with all the cosmoline. I actually had to take a little rubber mallet when I was taking apart the bolt carrier, would it just be the bolt on a bolt action? I'm thinking of an AR where it's a bolt carrier group. I don't know if this is just called the bolt in the bolt action, but regardless, as I was taking it apart, parts that were supposed to just, you know, come apart, I had to bonk with my frickin' rubber mallet to get them apart. So that was annoying. But I did all that. I took it to the range. I shot my first shot with it from the hip in case it exploded. I didn't want the bolt flying back into my neck. So did that, shot from the hip. It worked. Shot a couple more shots from the shoulder. Although at this point, I actually didn't have any clips, so I was just manually loading one round into the chamber each time. I shot it again then later with clips that I got. The clips, interestingly, were a bit more finagly than the rifle itself because, and I have them here, and you will have a question when you see this one. This is loaded. You have a question. I will answer that question later. So, yeah. This is them, and they are meant to be disposable, as in I load this into the rifle, cycle through my rounds, and then it comes out the bottom of the rifle. But these clips, when you buy them, they've probably been used a whole bunch of times, and they can work, but they'll get loose. So what I did was, the Carcano was not running reliably when I was just trying to cycle stuff through before the range to see that it worked. It just wasn't working. And on top of that, rounds were actually falling out of this clip, which was really annoying. So I looked it up, and you can like take a little plier and basically press down here, and on the corners, and it'll tighten back up the clip if it's kind of a worn out clip, which all mine from Royal Tiger imports were. So that helped with the feeding, so that when I was cycling before I was even at the range, just at home cycling through to make sure it worked, that was working well. However, it still wasn't quite right in the sense that when I loaded this 6-round clip with 6 rounds, the rounds at the top and bottom were falling out. So what I've done, and now I will answer the question I know you had, is I only loaded 5 rounds, which leaves some space at the top and bottom. And I also have this tape around with this as little flap here. It's just normal tape, I guess. And the reason is, if I don't have the tape on, the rounds will all fall out if I have these clips in my range bag. So what I do is I have this tape, and I have it's downloaded to 5 rounds rather than 6. When I'm going to shoot the Carcano, I will take the tape off, load in the 6-round clip with 5 rounds, and it shoots just fine. So a bit of a weird hack fix. I lost a round doing that, but it works reliably, and I don't have to deal with trying to make those clips perfect. So one part of the Carcano experience, and this is for the Cavalry Carbine or the full size, is you're going to have to deal with these clips. They're really annoying, but I've found that by doing that method of, and you can look this up too, I'm not going to show it in this video, but of using the pliers to get it a little bit tighter again, and also using the tape to hold just 5 rather than 6 rounds in, it works. I don't want to say flawlessly because I've only shot 30 rounds, so I don't want to make any sort of claims about, you know, reliability in 30 rounds. But, you know, in that time, it's been great. So that's the big thing with these Carcanos. If you do actually want to shoot them and not just keep them as a display piece, is you got to worry about the clip. The gun, I think, is probably going to be good, right? But it's the clips is where it's going to get you. So yeah, it was a little bit annoying to clean and to fix that little thing in the stock with the clips, but really, I mean, it was, you know, it took me a long time because I'm very bad at these things, but for most normal people, it could be a couple-hour project on a day if you get all your materials ready. One thing is as well, for the stock, what I did was I put a drop of dish soap in a spray and then filled the rest of it with water in a sprayer, sprayed down the wood stock to get it damp, and then just wiped it off. And that has eliminated the smell. It still has a really dark shade. Most Carcanos that I've seen are a little lighter. I don't know if that's just my finish or if I just didn't quite get it cleaned out or what's going on, but any surface debris is off the stock, and it doesn't smell anymore, which is the main thing. I didn't want my wood stock to smell because I'm putting it right up next to my face whenever I'm shooting it, just smelling the weird mildewy mold. So I'm glad that's not the case anymore. But yeah, I mean, I would honestly recommend this if it's something you're interested in. Specifically a Carcano Cavalry Carbine because of the price. But if you happen to find a full-size Carcano, this all applies too. They're very easy to take apart, very easy to clean with that exception of cosmoline. And even then, it wasn't like, some sort of crazy task. The clips are a little bit annoying, but once you know what you're dealing with, they're not that bad. And it's a whole lot of fun to shoot. One interesting thing about when I was shooting it was it had less recoil than I would have thought. And I think that's for two reasons. One, I think of ARs as this like super light recoiling gun, which they are. And since I've basically only shot ARs for rifles, I was getting this bolt action here. I was expecting this massive thump in my shoulder, this huge recoil, and it was just not that. It was more than the AR, but it wasn't like crazy much. And then the other thing that makes it feel a lot less recoiling is its bolt action. So even if you're shooting as fast as you can, you still have to work that bolt, and it gives you time to bring the rifle kind of back down into firing position. Whereas with a semi-automatic rifle like an AR, you shoot, there's recoil, and then you can shoot basically immediately again. So with an AR, what's limiting the speed that you can shoot at is the recoil. With this gun, the recoil isn't really the thing that's limiting the speed you can shoot at. It's the bolt. And the magazine, because it has a 6, or in my case, 5 round capacity. So, okay, I've explained to you that it was and still tends to be fairly cheap. Fixing it up isn't really that bad. The magazines aren't really that bad once you deal with them. Although I certainly wouldn't trust this to be as, reliable to be like a home defense weapon or anything. But why would you even do this, right? Like, okay, sure, it's fairly cheap to do, and it's easy-ish to do, but why the heck would you get one? Well, to me, I am a big appreciator of history, specifically World War I. And this was made in the Brescia factory, which, to my understanding, made a lot of the cavalry carbines, this specific model, in 1918, so World War I. I have no documentation about when it was used, so it could have been, some sort of run-on production 1918 after the war, and it was never used in World War I. But it could have been used in World War I too, and that's really interesting for me to think about as somebody who has learned a lot about the war and who thinks of the war as this big significant event, which it is. But at the very least, it was certainly used somewhere. It could have been used by the Italians in Ethiopia in the 30s, or more likely in World War II against the Allies rather than with them. So it was certainly used at some point, and it's really cool to see all these dents and think about where it's been, and the that part that you really can see it on the camera, the flat part there where it's worn, as somebody's worn it on their back over a sling. It's just really interesting to see, and it kind of gives me an appreciation too of like what the best fighting rifles in the day were. Like when I shoot this, not to say this was the very best, but it was up there. It was a modern military rifle of the time. Comparing shooting this to shooting my suppressed AR with an EOTech and magnifier and flashlight, I guess. That doesn't really get any use at the range. But, you know, the point is my AR with all the things that I like on it. And, like, the capacity and capability of that compared to this, it's kind of mind-blowing. It's like, wow, we've really come a long way. But at the same time, the Cavalry Carbine came out in 1893, and the Carcano proper came out in 1891. Smokeless powder came out, the French revealed it, and was it 1886? The point is, despite the fact that this is so far off from our modern guns, it's also crazy how much of a short period of time weaponry advanced, because you think of the muskets during, I guess they were rifled muskets, but, you know, during the Civil War, right? And then you have these single-loading black powder guns, trapdoor guns, and then, you know, within just a few years from that, you have smokeless powder, and then you have this. And so I think about, like, 30 years earlier, it would have been a Civil War rifled musket, and now, in 1891, you have this. Like, wow, that's pretty crazy. You know, these are really the first modern rifles in the sense of, you know, having a smokeless powder cartridge, having the bolt-action magazine. Like, obviously they're not modern like a modern AR, but, you know, it's still interesting to see where everything came from. And it was also interesting when I was, like, taking apart the bolt, and I was like, obviously, this being a bolt action, B, really old, obviously this is very different from a modern AR, but I can see, like, the parts and how modern semi-autos kind of came to be. I don't know, it's just really cool. And maybe you're somebody who already has a bunch of old guns, so this doesn't apply to you, but as somebody who really has just owned modern guns, to me this has been all real mind-blowing and pretty cool. So yeah, I would very much recommend one if you have some money to throw around and you're a little bit into history. I don't think I will be getting any more World War I rifles, mostly because, well, A, I have one now, but B, the Cavalry Carbine is the cheapest. They're more expensive now. Even Mosins can be pretty expensive now. So it's kind of like, yeah, I've got my one, I got a cheap one. That's that. But anyways, yeah, thank you for listening to my slightly rambly video, you know, a little history, a little firearms, no review, very little practical knowledge, just listening to me talk to myself. But the big message here is appreciate history, appreciate historical objects. If you have disposable income, go buy, you know, either a Carcano, because that's one I got and it's cheap, but, I mean, Mosins are out there. Other World War I, World War II rifles are out there. Other older firearms are out there. Other newer, but still historically significant firearms are out there. It's just a very fun experience, you know, reading about history in textbooks or on YouTube videos or documentaries or whatever is one thing, and I like doing all of those things, but interacting with history, like physically shooting a over 100-year-old gun, like, that's a different thing, and it's very cool, and it kind of helps bring all the pieces together. Anyways, once again, thanks for listening to the rambling, and have a great morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are.